and when I was at university, I didn't have anyone that was maybe 5, 6 years above me who could give me advice. And a lot of the people that did come along were people that were like alumni who have really made it and, multimillionaires and all that kind of stuff. And you kind of want people that are familiar, who understand you, who are not to say they're not normal people, but that are still going through like daily struggles as well. So yeah, social media is a big place to connect with people and to get opportunities. So as well as using it to, take photos and share your holidays and stuff, please make sure to like use it in a really useful way to get more opportunities, like, for your future and your career. So yeah.
Yeah, so last week, because we had a change of date, I did a request on social media to be like, we've got students who would love to have career professionals who would like to get involved. And we actually had about 30 people message and still messaging, which is great, which means that there's a lot of intent. But I think my point being is, 3 things. One is put yourself out there, because this is also a great way for me to network, right? So I wanted to show you by design that it's actually that easy.
Yeah.
2, I think the important thing is there are a lot of people who want to give back. So I know that we've had discussions as students to be like, how do I reach out to people and how do I have conversations? You actually genuinely reach out to people and you have conversations because they're super keen to have the conversation with you. But now also live on LinkedIn, FYI.
Can I add something quickly?
Yeah, of course.
So where you were talking earlier about following up, so I had actually emailed and didn't get a response, but what I did, smartly enough, I went to your Instagram and I was like, okay, she looks like a really busy lady, so I'm going to follow up again. So when you do email, don't automatically just be like, I'm just going to wait and see what happens.
Perfect.
Follow up. Because once you follow up, it's then going to come back to the top of their email and be like, okay, I remember that she emailed me, but I forgot to. So then after 100%. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Blah,
yeah,
blah,
I mean, I think I've told all of them my admin is terrible. I think I mentioned it at the beginning. But it's not something I'm proud of. It's just like I have automatic out of office, I've got my number. And I say that to young professionals all the time. I'm like, if someone's not replied back, it's not personal.
It's not.
A lot of the time it's professional, it's commercial, they're in different headspace, just message them back. And I think the third thing to that is, individuals want to see you're keen. They want to see you're invested. So if you're, as an example, you're like, how did you get into Selfridges? Or I want to start my own like toy brand, or if I want to do something similar, it's not just messaging Desiree, be like, can you give me the tips? It's more like, I've done this research on your product. I've gone into store to see what you're doing. I've got some background information.
Yeah.
I've done my education. And now I'm coming with like these focused questions. I think my biggest pet peeve is, Sonia, can you tell me how to start a business? I was like, there's a book, go and invest. Or can you tell me what X, Y, Z is? I'm like, but you haven't even like done the work to do a little bit of work. And that's what differentiates you from somebody who just wants it or somebody who really deserves it. And the point is, even an employer or individuals like us don't give you something there and then, we'll remember it. We'll be like, oh, remember that person in the green top that once upon a time? And we'll seek out for you. So like Sonal has been messaging me for months, and we've been trying to plan a podcast and plan this panel. We have, and she's always top of my mind. But I want to put her in the right things and the things that I know will benefit her, but also benefit those around her because of the identity that I know and I know what she's sharing, right? So she does a lot of career coaching now, a lot of conversations. I'm like, this will be perfect for students in the work that needs to be done. Does anyone have any questions? This is definitely your forum. You have about half an hour left. Ask anything.
Yeah, I actually have a question because we talk a lot about we figure it out ourselves mostly. But then I would like to ask, if in your journey when you decide to know what you want to do, does anyone help you for a friends, a parents, a families, or a book or a podcast that help you to in the way to figure out what you want to do? So that's kind of thing I want to ask.
I did lots of speaking to people already in the industry, some people that I knew or some people that had friends or relatives in the industry, technology, getting different perspectives. Some were good, some were bad, Really, I did a lot of research. I've got to say, I talked to a lot of people. I did my own online research just to understand what was really high on the jobs in the industry, what kind of skills were needed, what parallel skills I had at the time, and from my experience, how I could use them. You do have to do your own homework, and to be fair, I wasn't really being cautious because I was giving up a whole career and leaving, so I just wanted to be a little bit more comfortable before I took the dive and leave and just go ahead and do what I did. but I've never looked back, and you always learn from it. Even if you fail, there's some big lessons you learn. You gain so much from doing something outside of your comfort zone, because that's where you grow the most.
So I would say Google is your best friend. Google and YouTube, and I know you hear that all the time, but it really is, because like I said, I came from passion. So how did I somewhat build a brand that was somewhat successful by myself if I had no knowledge of it? So Google and YouTube will definitely help you. And also just friends around you and family, because you never know who knows what. So a close friend of mine was actually a marketing manager in education, but it wasn't within toys or anything, but she was focused on the emails and the newsletters and things like that. And that's something that I didn't know. All I knew was the creative side, which was illustrating the products that I created. But the business side, I didn't know much about. So it was a lot of listening to podcasts, listening to people. There's a lady called Grace Beverly, who's really lovely. She's someone who has built her business by herself. She's got investors and things like that. So it's great to listen to people who have just started their business. Also people that have had the business for a little while as well. It's a good place to listen to them too. And I think my biggest advice on when it comes to where to learn about what you want to do is actually kind of listening to yourself, I would say. So I think as well as Google and YouTube being there, once you've done that research, actually believing believing yourself and your instinct. Because sometimes you'll see something and it'll say, oh, to have a business you need to have £6,000. I started my business with £1,000 and I've never reinvested any money back in, and it's going to be 3 years in September. So a lot of people will tell you that you need a lot of money and you need to do this and you need to do that, but you'll just know if it's right. You'll just know in yourself if that's what you're meant to do and if that's a risk you're meant to take. So just always believe in yourself.
One of the biggest things that have helped me as I'm starting my career is actually joining a mentorship program. I'm a part of the Soho House mentorship program, and they've actually paired me up with a writer as well. So it's free. The membership is usually I don't know how much it is in pounds, but 4,000 Canadian, but it gives you access to basically a house in the city, and also the members in the houses that are in the creative industry or in the business industry. So they match you up with someone and you get one-on-one sessions to ask all those questions about where do you start off, how do you freelance, how do you connect with people, all that stuff. And then you also have access to the house, so you can work, go to events, all that stuff. So if you're under 27, you can do that. If you want details on how to apply for that, I think their applications are open, but it's a really great opportunity, and I still keep in touch with my mentor. So yeah.
I love that. I mean, I'm going to plug my own company in there and say that that's literally the work that we do. So you already know, and maybe you don't know, but we run a mentoring program. We have the UK's largest mentoring program with a 90% success rate. And we mentor 1,000 people now. And our next cohort is in June. So mentorship really does make a difference. I love that. Any other questions? Please.
Like all of you work in pretty different industries, and I just wanted to ask if there's, for each of you, a specific skill or skills you're really happy you had going into that industry, and what you kind of wish you developed prior to jumping into it.
Good question. To me, I think I know it's the age-old communication. It's always how to get on with people, how to recognize people, how to deal with different situations, and that comes with experience. But it is being a good communicator, being really clear, especially in technology. You get people trying to do very complex projects. If you don't communicate those messages clearly, you're not going to land with something that you intended to land with. And just generally, I think 70-80% is actually about people. In any career, any industry, any business, any entrepreneurship is all about networking. So I think really honing in on how you speak, if you lose patience often with different leadership and different management, but you have to be careful what you're saying and know how to be articulate, sell your points and get them across really well. I think that's really key for anybody, really. And what was the other part of the question? What we wish we'd had. I wish I could have handled the politics better. office politics, corporate, you just get all different characters, especially joining investment banking. When I joined, it's just a different cup of tea. You really have got some, you know, tough situations and characters to deal with at times. And I think, you know, when I was younger, I just wish I'd learned it earlier, you know, gone in with that, but you don't, it comes with experience.
I think for me, it's my creativity. So I'm happy that I got that from my degree and, you know, my experience in fashion. So that's really helped me build my brand up. What I wish that I had before starting my business was negotiation skills, because that's very hard as a business owner. When I started the business, it was basically like my second baby, but I then had to kind of take that mindset out and say, this is a business and my suppliers and my manufacturers are not my friends because they're trying to make money as well. So I had to get into that mindset very early on as the business grew. So I think that's something that I wish I took on, negotiation skills.
One of the things I've had in content creation and also in writing is like resilience. You get a lot of no's when you are a freelancer, but every no leads you to the right yes. So you just gotta like keep pushing on, don't get beat down, which is like something that I took comfort in my 9 to 5, where I was like always going to have like a job, my paycheck. But in freelancing, the risks are like higher, but the payoff is better. You just need to have a really strong mindset. And the other thing that I wish I learned earlier on in my career is don't burn bridges with anybody, because you're gonna have to walk past it. Same thing, it's like the politics of like a corporate space. Like
It's a small world, no matter business or corporate.
Exactly.
It's such a small world.
Yeah, watch your mouth, because I'm quite opinionated, and sometimes I don't know how to censor myself, and I get really passionate about like inequality in the workforce, which is hard when you're in like a corporate world because there are things you have to kind of bend to. So just fine tune that.
I love that. Any other questions?
I have a question. So, as like someone coming from like a minority background, and I kind of like always struggle to like preach for myself and like get visibility.
Mhm.
So I wanted to ask you like, what is a good way to like overcome this and like become more confident about like getting more visibility with other people and just like saying what you have achieved and like what are these things that you have done.
I think the first thing that came to mind as you were talking was being yourself, honestly, because that's the only person you can be, and being a minority, be proud of it, and don't shy away from it because, you know, people want you to be a certain way. So whether it is, you know, around your friends or the achievements that you've done, like speak on that, don't hide away from it, you know, that's the best advice I can give.
If you don't blow your own trumpet, no one else will, and no one knows what you've done and achieved. I think you have a loving manner about you. I like the way you speak from a very short period of seeing you. So I'm sure you've got lots to offer when you speak and, you know, to share with people. And the more you do it, it is practice. The more I never used to talk up, and someone read something once saying, "You're really underselling yourself." She knows me very well. It's actually a former mentor. She said, "What are you talking about? You haven't written X, this, and this," and she just tore it to shreds when I was writing something. And she said, "You're just underselling yourself." So it comes with practice. You have to really keep doing it.
I also think it's like you are in demand right now. Like there is a big shift in equity, like there are so yes, you may come from a background where it's like the narrative was marginalized people are always going to be less than, but that's not necessarily the case. So you just need to be ready for that. Letting people get speak out and like
You love Barclays. I would praise them for diversity.
Yeah, linked to it all the time.
It's amazing. I've got many other corporates. These guys are really up to their game. You'll love it. There's loads of different networks for different people. And the whole focus, one of our own objectives has to be on diversity. Work. How important it is. So you're joining the right time.
Look, you've already got a connection in it, right? That's super excited. During our sessions, I've encouraged them to make a LinkedIn We've even actually sat there making a LinkedIn to do it. And
Oh,
you know what? It may not look like it's important right now, but just having that profile, which we've talked about plenty of times.
I've done business and we haven't really focused on, in my degree, we haven't really focused on technology. And I want to know, do you guys have any advice of trying to embrace something new, what I should do, what like training or something, or do courses, what I can do to embrace something new that I'm not used to?
there's so many different free things you can go to boot camps these days for coding and just do a very short taster to get the feel for what it's like. Because coding to me is very much you do or don't, you know. And then technology is so wide. There's so many opportunities and so many networks that you can join, and then just learn from others as well as take part in things. There's I can't even number. Sonia knows many too, and I think you should meet people and talk to them like different professions and gauge what it's all about, because you will have skills to match. It's not just all about coding. There's technology touches everything these days, so you know you will find something that you enjoy, I'm sure.
I think I'm gonna say LinkedIn again, and the reason why I'm gonna say LinkedIn is because sometimes when I'm stuck with certain things, I might have someone that I'm connected to on there or I'm not, and I just go to the chat section and say to them, "Hi, I was just wondering this, and the other." So it might be someone that has just graduated and then they've been in a tech job for 2 years. Drop them a message and just say to them, "Hi, I'm at university. I just wanted to get a little bit more information." If they, answer, they do. It might take a little while because they're working or whatever. Or maybe if the conversation builds, you could then say, "Oh, can we go for a coffee?" That's a great way to like network and find a little bit more about events that you go to. So LinkedIn, I think.
I agree. There's so many different articles that pop up or interest. You just join the newsletters and you just learn so much through that as well.
I don't have much to say. But when it comes to something that like I'm trying to ideate something new, like I perhaps find inspiration not in terms of the direct source, because there are other things you reading a book or something like that. Like we need to come back to reading. I think
When you guys are very successful, how do you brag without bragging? How do you say everything without having to like look like this?
I find that hard. I'm not gonna lie to you.
But can I
Hard.
come back with a question? Question is two things, right? Playing devil's advocate. Like, what is wrong with brag? It's my first question, and I don't put you on the spot. It's just a general question to everyone. Like, I think the fact that we've associated that question in that way, it sounds like bragging is a terrible thing, whereas I'm a big self-promotion, because the example being, I always say like be your biggest cheater, right? I was like X, Y, Z, but I wasn't talking about it or joking at myself, then I guess it wouldn't be true, it wouldn't be relevant, let's say. So I love your question, but I think it's also reframing it to be like, how do you self-promote without feeling anxious about it or feeling panicky, or maybe you're generally just quite like a reserved person. So how do you come out of your shell or that natural in which you're in?
When your bragging comes off as a
I feel like it depends on how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for instance, when I started Selfridge, I was very happy to share it over social media, but when it came to speaking personal talks that I was doing, I felt very nervous. And the reason why is that for me it was imposter syndrome, because I've come from fashion and I'm now in toys, so I felt like I'm in this industry. But now where I speak to you guys about it, like I come today, my name says right, I am an informer and my products are in Selfridge. I'm not saying it like, oh my gosh, I'm in Selfridge, I'm the best in the world. There's a way that you present yourself, but you also share your achievements in a way that's not. I don't think bragging is the right word. Because if you've achieved something, that's not bragging. You work hard for that. So if you get, whether it's first class or second, you proud of that thing. I did that because I worked 3 years to do that. You worked really hard to do it. So just how you communicate with that person.
And also bringing your receipts, right? I'm a big fan of like documentation. So we've done the work. The fact is, these 3 like very, very amazing women, they shared their profiles with me, and it made me feel a certain way. I was like, oh wow, like look at what you're doing, you know. So everyone has that feeling to begin with, because you're always comparing yourself. I think the second thing is that you want to practice how you present yourself. So there's no right way of it, changes over time. I went to an event 2 years ago where I had basically verbal like output, and I just was like, and I do this, and I do this, and I do this, and I do this, and genuinely people walked away. I was like, right, that was a little bit too much for me because I didn't know what I was doing. So I try and, like, as an example, say no more than 3 things, depending on what it is. So if I'm out in media, I'm a presenter first, I'm an author first, then I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm just a content creator. I forget about running a business. But if I'm in like the tech space or a business space or a money space, I'm like, I'm a business person, then I'm an author, then I'm a presenter. So you can shake it up, which is completely fine. And I think the final thing to say there is, it's not bragging if you're presenting yourself and you're showcasing the great work you've done. If you've worked hard, like you're going to be graduates, you are graduates. You went to one of the best business schools in the world that's available. Talk about that, because you not only earned your pays, but you worked damn hard to get whatever it is you did at the end. And be like, you know, my name is X, I studied Y, I went to Z business school, and a topic of interest is A. Like, it could be that really basic template, because the other person might not take it as bragging. The other person's like, okay, now I know more about them, so I know how to direct my conversation. No, it's good. I mean, this is, I'm glad, it's, like I said, it's not just me talking. It's not me like big sister Sonia. I'm like, let me just validate from everyone else that what I said actually makes sense as well.
We're not as confident with to be able to say what I've done or what I'm doing. So, you know, we all suffer now. It does, you know, we all have our moments, don't we, even now?
Absolutely. Jennifer, I want to bring that question back to you, because you to some extent have to self-promote when you have to pitch yourself. So I'd love to ask you 2 questions. One is just in terms of freelancing and pitching, for me included, like, what does that mean? Because actually I don't know how many of us know what pitching, freelancing, gauging new opportunities, what that looks like, and, you know. And the second point is, you have to self-promote, you have to brag, you have to showcase what you've done before. How do you manage that from a perspective of, you started this conversation being like, I'm not the like loudest talker and I'm a little bit reserved, to I'm now doing something for TripAdvisor, I think you said, right? Which is like epic.
So one of the most important things will be that those girls don't get fed, and that really like pushed me out of my comfort zone, because by jumping into as well, like I want to make this work. If I want to travel, be in London for 2 months because I'm in a long distance relationship, I better work as a freelancer, because I can't do that in my 9 to 5, which is like a personal choice. But to bring it back to freelancing, what is pitching? Pitching is basically just like going to different corporations, like Means, for example, for me, and some kind of story. So that might translate to other things like business, like selling, like to like tell them your product's great. And as a freelancer, that essentially means work, but with different bosses at various companies. Yeah, that's basically it.
And Desiree, when you went in Selfridges, talk us through that, because I think that's such an exciting, like the fact you can be like, I'm in Selfridges, I think is wild. So like 100%, like my book is in Waterstones, and every time I go into it, I'm not only shocked, but I will go and re-merch stuff so that my book is right at the front.
I know it should be.
And then I take pictures of it, put it online, people are like, oh, it's a bestseller, it's number one. Which it is if you don't listen to the recording. But I think my point is the two ways, right? Like those are brands that we've grown up with. So even like our colleague who's got a job at Barclays or anybody else got anything established, ready, like where do you want to work? You know, like I know that if I wanted to do like, I don't know, if I wanted to work with LinkedIn and I'm working with LinkedIn, if I want to work with YouTube, I'm working with YouTube. These are brands that we've known of in our own houses. And now these are the brands we're working with, which I think really like rocks your mind. So talk us through that process from how did you approach them and how did you negotiate your terms? Because that's also really important. Yeah. It's not just Selfridges are jump for you. It's like, hey, it's a mutual decision, right?
So when I started the business in the first 2 months, because I was very confident, I emailed Selfridges and I said, hi, my name's Desiree. This is my brand, it's absolutely amazing. I got no response. And then what we did, 2022, they reached back out to me and said, we've basically been watching you on Instagram, which I'm saying Instagram is basically your portfolio. And they just said, we absolutely love what you're doing. We would love to have a conversation, a meeting. We did send them the sample, and they approved it. And then after that, the lady who was actually dealing the buyer, she went on maternity leave, so I had to wait another 6 months. And then went back to it, and we were like very unofficial suppliers of Selfridges. Also, the first inclusive and diverse toy brand in Selfridges ever. So just how long has it been? Years, donkey years. Like, I feel like before my grandparents, but yeah, it's been there for years. So that was very exciting. I was also a stylist in Selfridges at 18. So the fact that I was going back there with my son, who's 3, and saying, wow, like this is kind of some kind of like the next generation of wealth that I'm building, which is absolutely amazing. In terms of you know, things like that. Being a small business, like I said, starting off with only £1,000. At the time of when I got into Selfridges, I did actually win a funding for my business, which was great. But at the same time, even though I won that money, I was not going to just say, okay, you could just pay me in 60 days or 90 days. I still wanted to make it something that was right for my business. And that's very hard to do, especially where you're working with people who have been in this industry for so long. So buyers that have been there 6 years and worked with, you know, big brands like Barbie and Lego and stuff. Then you've got a brand that's just come out for 3 years and she's come from fashion to toys. So it's just having that conversation and saying, look, this is what I can do, which is I would like to work on a, 30% payment upfront and 70% the rest of the payment after 21 days of delivery, which they were happy with. They did want to, make it a bit shorter. And I said, no, I can't do that. And the fact that my product was very unique and it was something that people hadn't seen before, you could just tell that there was that push and that motivation that they really wanted to have my products in store. So it wasn't easy, but I kind of had to believe in myself and say, you're not going to go ahead with what they want because you want to be in Selfridges. I don't want to be in Selfridges and, have my margin be, really low and I'm not making a profit just to say on Instagram, hi, I'm in Selfridges, but I'm not actually making any money. So I think it's very important to stick to your terms, but also negotiate in the right way. An example is I was talking to a company and they're called Tiny, which is a childminding company. So they recently wanted me to make 5 videos that was based on diversity for parents on their app. And when I spoke to her, we had a really good meeting. And then after I emailed and just said, I would love to know what your budget is for this. And she said, we've got no budget. Basically, 5 videos for free. And funny enough, what was so funny is that this was just the weekend before Mother's Day. So I actually felt ill. I was ill on Mother's Day and I was just ill just last week. And I didn't actually respond to her because I was ill. And then on Monday, she emailed me and said, I've spoken to the senior management and we now have a budget of 2,500.
Wild. That's a lot of money that they randomly found.
So I was like, oh, okay. And I think it's the factor of looking at my portfolio on my personal Instagram and my business Instagram, knowing that, and not, once again, not to brag, but actually saying that this is a business that is working hard and have got to certain places in a short amount of time, and they can see the CV and portfolio of what I've done. So it's not, if I was starting off and it was 6 months into the business, I would have probably done it for free just to build my portfolio up. But where I'm right now, like, I'm not, like, coming back to you guys and being here, I would go to any university and, even my university that I went to want me to be a guest lecturer. And I spoke to a friend and I was like, oh, but they only want to pay this amount. And she's like, but Des, you're giving back. And then I thought to myself, yes, that's fine, I'm giving back. And there's no need to actually, there's some places that it's good to take payment, and there's some places that it's okay not to. And here, for me now, like, I didn't have what you guys have. I didn't have someone talking to me, advising me. Like you spoke earlier about mentor. I mentor people. I didn't have a mentor, even when I started my business, even when I graduated. So being able to come back here, even though initially I did say, oh, is there a budget? Now I'm here and I'm like, I'm so happy that I'm able to give back to you, even if it's the tiniest thing from coming from fashion to toys or, negotiating. In maybe 2 or 3 years later, you guys might say, oh, I was at this panel and I learned something from one of these ladies here. That would make me so happy because I didn't have that, so.
And I think just on that point, I do want to really, really thank everyone for being here. And I would say, this is not like a shade to anyone, but we don't have big budgets to play with. And like I said, it took me 2 years to sign this off. This doesn't cover my budget. This doesn't pay my bills. We do it because it's actually really important to come and give back to students. Like, investment of time, for me, it's been like 2 hours for 6 weeks, but it's about giving back and leveraging that. But also, when I reached out to the panelists, I was really transparent in my comms to be like, look, there's a chance that students won't even show up. So how excited I get when you all show up, right? Because there is a chance. And I was like, I don't want to waste your time if you're traveling 2 hours, 3 hours for no one to show up, because it's really important to be, there's no budget, there's no there's transparency, people might not show up. We would love it if you come. We'll give you the content and the blog and the well-wishing where possible. But this is not just about a one-off site, right? It's like, you've met 3 different people and 3 different things they do. You don't know where you're going. So actually, in 2, 3, 4 years, when you have some kind of decision-making power, you might reach back out and be like, now we want to thank you for that moment, and this is how we can thank you. And I think it's really about having that, like, really worldly view of things, to be like, even if something isn't satisfying commercially or compensating in that metric today, you don't know where you're going to be in the next 3, 4 years, and you don't know how you can leverage people and level them up. So always consider that as well. If people are helping you from their own pocket and the generosity, which they are, think about how you can help them in return. That might be Mother's Day is coming, or actually you've got siblings who are looking for like toys, or that might be you're on Twitter and actually you see an opportunity for a pitch or freelancing and you tag Jennifer. Like, whatever you can do, that's the moment that you should be doing that, right? And I think that's also important to share, because, and we've shared this prior, it's not a one-way relationship, and I don't ever want you to leave thinking it is. But just because you might not have anything to give today doesn't mean that you don't have something to give tomorrow. It's just always about thinking like that. We're going to have like 2 final questions and then we're going to have to stop. So any final bits? Yeah.
I have another question. I just wanted to ask, like, it seems like all of you had some sort of buffer zone where you weren't really sure, like, what was coming next, or like you didn't have a job lined up, or like you didn't know if you wanted to do your master's. Like, is there anything you did during those times that, like, to kind of see light at the end of the tunnel, I guess?
When I didn't have any like writing opportunities coming in, I sulked a bit and I was like, this sucks. But I also took it as an opportunity to be like, okay, where in my professional career, like, am I missing things? Like, let me fix my back end. Let me make sure my income is like all in an Excel sheet. I'm preparing for taxes. Like, really, I have my website up. My social media presence is good, so that when the opportunity comes, I'm ready to go. And then I also took the time to like chill out, because I came from a 9 to 5. I did my master's and I was so burnt out that I was like, even if I were to get a job right now, I couldn't put my whole self into it. So like prioritizing how you show up to the job is also really important, and taking time to rest and fine tune yourself, because if you're not your best self and you're stepping into these opportunities, how can you like provide for these companies? That's it.
I think for me, in the time of being made redundant and starting my business, I actually continued styling up to about 8.5 months pregnant, because I didn't know what I was going to do. Fashion was what I'd done for so long. So I kind of agree with you. It's about looking at, your finances in that period of time. If you have no job, don't go like crazy shopping and end up with no money left. But also just looking at your other skills and talents that you have. So, for instance, if it was like now thinking about it, a lot of things are remote just because of lockdown. If that was at that time, I would have probably looked on Indeed or something and maybe found a remote job to do in that time to, get some money and save and things like that. So just looking at other aspects of and areas of where you're really skilled in, if you ever get into that, stuck area that you don't know what to do. So yeah.
I think I would echo everything already said. You do have to look after your well-being first and foremost, because if you're not right in the mindset, you're not going to be able to provide to anybody a good service on whatever it is you offer. I think what I did when I was studying and I took that year out during the masters, I actually asked during the summer in the actual university if they had any work in their IT department, because one, I wanted to get experience because I had no clue. And two, I thought I'd earn a little bit as well because I didn't know what was going to happen when I came out. So it so happened that they did have something, and they said, what are your interests? And I told them, and I did join them for a period of, I think it was 6 to 8 weeks. And, that helped me as well, not only just learn and understand what they were doing in their networking department, but just a little bit of pocket money as well. So you do have to think of other things outside the box and think about it and try to, accommodate yourself, if you like, to have something in place.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And you raised it earlier, which I just want to touch on. Not everything comes with that like form of monetary compensation. So volunteer your time, provide access, think about where you can get involved just to build that experience. I'm not saying that money isn't important, but I am saying that when you start to earn money, you realize that money isn't everything, and money can't buy you a lot of experience. It can buy you access and it can buy you happiness, but that's basically all it really fulfills. But experience really comes with you going and getting your hands dirty and understanding how the system works. And I know as an employer, I will give a job to someone who's done a bunch of things and got their hands dirty and failed a bunch of times than I would with someone who's just had one linear path because of the income. I think the second point to that is there's a lot of roles that aren't as satisfying. So it depends on what your skill sets are. And you're going to have to do a lot of labor of some kind. So think of that as skill swapping. And if you don't have the income, go and be like, hey, I'm just giving you an example, right? Jennifer, you said during the session that maybe you don't use LinkedIn or you don't use Instagram. I'm building my portfolio around this in terms of social media assistance or social media setting. Do you mind if I come and build your profile and you give me a review at the back of that? Right? That's like one thing you've picked up that they're looking for already. You might be like, Desiree, I've seen that you're going around and you actually want to take content. I'm trying to build up my portfolio as a photographer, as a videographer in terms of content. Do you mind if I just shadow you for the day? That way I can learn, but in return, I'm going to provide X for you. Sonal, you spoke about career coaching. Now, I don't have the investment of money, but I know that I can introduce 10 different students who'd be really interested in your services. Can we have a half an hour chat? So think about what you already have to offer and what you can leverage and what you have as tools, because that's so important. And only you have that, right? So skill swapping is so important. You can think of it that way. And I think the last thing is not everything has to be formalized. So you've attended the mentorship program for the last 6 weeks. You've also attended this panel. Write about it. Put it in a blog. Put it in content. Put it in posts. Tag people. And then reference it in your CV. Like literally be like, attended this workshop, spoke to these 3 amazing women, 4 if you're going to include me. This is like what we learn. And here's the write-up of it. Because actually what that shows to me as a potential employer is you've done the work, you're doing the work, you've proactively created something at the back of it, but it also shows me your writing skills, your reading skills, your ability to communicate in some way. So you're always building experience, but think like out the box when it comes to building experience. We are going to ask one more question and then we're going to wrap up. So who wants to be the final question asker? Who hasn't asked a question? Who wants to ask? Put in your CV, mate. Just be like, I raised my hand out of my comfort zone. And that's a great way to challenge yourself. Okay, cool. I will do the final question then. I've got two questions. I think my first question is, what is one thing that when you were a student or at university level or at that point in life that you thought was so important, but now when you've grown up a little bit and you're in the real world and you're balancing all these different things, you realize actually has very little meaning, if none.
Should we be honest?
Everything is honest and it's
sure?
live. I'm all for honesty.
I don't think I should be honest to the university student. About what I'm gonna say.
No, don't say that. So
Do you know what I'm gonna say?
maybe, but I need a contract with uni, so let's not say that. Let's reword it.
Okay, I'll reword it.
I'll stay safe, but like, you know, when
Not
you're
too
in,
safe.
you know when you're in elementary school and you're learning like I'm in the creative arts, so it's like I obviously don't do math, I don't do like or like chemistry anymore, so like it doesn't mean much. In university, I had to learn APA formatting, and I thought like it was really important to like have these really fleshed out papers, and it is to an extent, but it's not that deep. Like if you can't write a 40-page paper, that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna fail as a writer or whatever. Like it's valid, it's okay, you're fine. That's it.
So,
That's great.
Reformulate what I'm going to say. So, I'm not going to say this.
Say what you gotta say, just do it. It's fine.
No, I'm going to say it in a good way. So, my personal view on it is when I graduated, I didn't feel that.
We all feel it, don't worry about it. Say it.
I didn't feel that my degree. I didn't feel that my degree did anything for me. But don't listen to that. Don't listen to that. That's my personal preference. But I think it's different, and I think the reason why is because my industry, when I was in fashion design, is a lot different. If you are in going into an industry that's more corporate, I think 100% that degree matters. Fashion design or buying or writing, there's people that are in the industry that never went to university. For me to get into styling, I probably didn't need my degree, but I got it and it helped. So I'm not saying that your degree doesn't matter, because it does matter in terms of, let's say for instance now, maybe I wanted, I started a business and maybe my business doesn't go well anymore, and I'm like, I want to find a job. If I then want to go into business management with a corporation or organization, my degree will help me. But as of right now, where I'm at in my business, it doesn't do much for me besides me saying, oh, hi, I've got a degree. So that's my 2 cents on it. But your degree matters, guys.
No, but I think just on that point, right? No, but on that note, I'd say caveat that, because that's one of the reasons why I came back to university.
Yeah.
And I said, what you're learning, 100% in your degree, is not practical in real life. Okay, so I did business, very similar. We learned how to manage 300 people from a HR function in Brazil. Okay, that was literally one of my case studies. Now, if you're telling me that that's the same way you manage people in your own workforce, it's not. It's completely different. So university will teach you networking and communication skills. It will also be the last time you have some life without real responsibilities. It will show you how to academically sift through the work and how to create references and research, which is key. But it's not going to give you the practicality of work life until you get into work and you have to face those real life demands. Yeah. And I think secondly, we're also talking about, and I appreciate like you graduated in 2017, you said, right? Yeah. Life has actually moved really fast since then, believe it or not, in the last 5-6 years. Yeah. The other point is what the requirements were prior. So when I left university in 2015, you had to have a degree. Yeah. All of this beautiful EDI stuff, this inclusion stuff where degrees aren't that relevant or apprenticeships are important or your degree doesn't need to be in your CV, that wasn't a thing, right? It wasn't a thing in 2017 either. So it's only recently that even people that have gone to school have realized maybe you could have done this a different way. But in that moment, could I have done it a different way? No, because the system didn't allow it. You're now in a systems. And remember, we had this conversation, I don't know if it was last workshop, the workshop before, when someone said, should we do a master's? And I said, no.
Yeah.
And university's not going to like me for it. But I was like, unless you know why you're doing a master's, don't do a master's for the sake of doing a master's. Yes, do a master's if you need sponsorship when you're staying in the country. That's different. Do a master's if you are very sure that that's what you want to do, but don't do a master's because you think it's going to build up extra skill set, because it's not. Go out and work. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Son, or before we get to your point as well, but Desiree, on like masters and occasion CVs and university.
Masters, I kind of agree with you, unless it's something very niche that you need to learn more into. And CV now, like if I take people on, it's great that you've got a degree, but also experience is big to me. Like you said, like when I graduated, you had to, degree was important. Now, it's probably still important in some areas, but also people are looking at what you've done aside of that. Okay, you've got the degree, but have you worked as an, have you done an apprenticeship? Have you done an internship? Like, have you actually been in this field in some sort? And it's just good to have people that are very ambitious and passionate. And, it's great that you start work at 9 and you finish at 5. I'm not saying that, you have to work till 7 p.m, but always going that a little bit extra, doing extra research for the company that you work with is really important. Like you were saying earlier about, doing, I don't know who said it, but doing the like boring projects and stuff
Absolutely.
like that. That some people like, I might hire someone and they do like the most amazing stuff, like the fun stuff, the social media. And then after they're like, oh, this bit's really long and boring. And they don't put their full heart into it, how they did the social media. You kind of have to be in it for everything and not just the bit that you like, And that's like with me, with my business. There is, I love social media, and creating content and stuff, but when it's the money section, sometimes it's tiring and long. So you should,
Sana, what about yourself?
I don't know what else I can add, to be honest.
What about friendships and relationships? Now, I think at university you get very caught up with the people that you're around. These are my besties, these are my friends, or you neglect other people. My university friends are actually my bestest friends. But, and there's a big but, when I was at uni, I chose to hang out with like really people because I thought they were cool. That made sense. Whereas my uni friends were far more loyal. And even to this day, they're loyal and they show up to this day. But I think at university, you forget that the people next to you can be your besties, they can be your bridesmaids, it can be the people you fall in love with. I know it's like, it actually is that deep because it does happen. They can be your business partners, they can be your co-founders, but also it's okay if you grow apart. And I feel like for some reason, friendships are a big statement as well. You can grow apart. But luckily what you have is you have technology and you can stay connected wherever you are in the world. I'd love to therefore just one of my final questions, talking about friendship and relationships. How do you manage the situationships, relationships in your life when you have so much else to balance and juggle? So I know you mentioned your long distance relationship. You've got a child and you're running a business, and Sana, you have a life, right? Which I think is just as important, but we tend to take away the power and the weight depending.
When it comes to friendships, being a mom and being a business owner, it's not easy. It's all about balance. So there are days that, if I know, my son goes to nursery 3 days a week, and then I end things that I have outside of that time. For instance, now he's with my mum. I'm actually a single mum, so it's just me and my son, as well as running the business. So it's like actually prioritizing, what I want to do, as well as, I could be with him right now, but at the same time in my mind, it's like I would love to give back to other people as well. So just finding that balance of not doing everything every single day where I have no time for him. So balance is very important. In terms of friendships at uni, I'm actually only probably friends with one person from uni. And people that I was with there were quite a lot younger than me because of, how I'd stepped back in the different like colleges and universities that I went to. But I think it's very important to make friends at university, because you don't know how, you might help each other in the future, whether it's like emotionally, or, if one of you is going through a breakup or a job, or, you might be in the same industry and you might be able to help each other as well. That's a good thing. I think one thing that I found hard in business with friendship is that not everyone's going to want you to win. And I've been burnt. Like, she wasn't actually officially my son's godmother, but I found out just last year that my closest friend, which was my best friend, had actually gone to a newspaper to write about me, which was very insane, to The Sun. And basically, for about 3 years, I didn't tell anyone that I was a single mother. I wasn't really ashamed or anything, but it was just my closest friends that knew about it. So there's a situation that happened. So I actually became a single mother the day after birth. And my best friend that I didn't know, that my best friend at the time, went to go and speak to a journalist behind my back. And she basically told them the whole situation of what had happened, and it was in the papers. So when I spoke to a journalist, she basically said to me, it's coming out, a beautiful story about the fact that you're in Selfridges and everything else. And after I dropped my son, I remember it was a Tuesday morning, went to Tesco's, opened the newspaper, and I opened it, and it basically just said, which is absolutely disgusting, black black entrepreneur becomes a single mother a day after birth. And already in the UK and in the world, there is a stereotype of black women, Asian women, women of colour in general, even men, to be honest. And I closed the paper, I went in the car and I cried, and I was there for a long time. I then told my mum. I didn't tell any of my friends, because obviously SEO, if you guys know, is search engine optimization. The more you look at something online, the more it goes to the top. So once my name comes up, once my business comes up, people are going to see it more. So when I showed my mum, I actually went on private on Safari to show her so that no one would see it. And it was very upsetting. But after that, it was kind of a negative that went to a positive. Because after that, I had publications that contacted me and said, we heard your story, so motivational, things like that. Selfridges contacted me and said, we saw it. And they basically said, don't worry, your picture looked beautiful in there, which made me feel a little bit better. But it was horrible. It was very hard to know that someone that I'd been best friends with for so long, over 15 years, I was going to make, her the godmother to my child, had gone behind my back and done that. And I think to this day, not that I don't trust anyone, I still trust people and friends, but you have to be very careful with the people around you. Like, be open and share your experiences and what you're doing and your goals, but don't tell everyone everything. Like, you have to keep some things to yourself. And that's very, very important, whether you're going into business or the workplace. I think also the workplace as well, I'm sure like you said, politics. The politics in the workplace is insane. So as well as you talking to people, just don't get into that space of like bitching about someone else and you get stuck and then everyone sees you as being that bitch, It's important just to keep to yourself, have conversation, but just remember it's a workplace, it's not your company. You're there working and trying to get to a higher role or a higher place, and not just focusing on all the politics that's going on. So yeah.
I mean, thank you for sharing. And honestly, that was super brave of you. And to some extent, I feel validated because I've had 2 friends do very similar things to me over the last few years. But I think the point is exactly what you said. There'll be friends who really want to back you, and there'll be people that aren't ready for you. And you just have to have thick skin. And if you want to progress in business, with all due respect, you have to have thick skin. And if you want to start a business, you have to have thicker skin, right? I think a lot of people want to be freelancers or start a business because they think it's easier. It is damn hard. And a lot of the time, all you're doing is chasing for your next paycheck and trying to figure out how to not let somebody else screw you over and always know your rights. I mean, now I've come to this point where I'm like, I have a good accountant, I have a good lawyer, and I have a good dentist, right? Those are like the 3 things that I feel like you need, and they're good. Sonal, let's come on to you and then we'll start wrapping up.
I think it's so true what you say. I work full time and it's not just 9 to 5, it is long hours sometimes, quite demanding. I'm a vice president, so it can get demanding when you have people under you. but I'm also doing my side hustle. And some of the friends do not understand what I'm doing, so I don't share. It's exactly what you've just said. They don't understand your journey and they actually want to put you down, or they're not happy for you because they think that you're doing better than them, when reality is I'm really, really working hard behind the scenes trying to get the side hustle up as well as maintain my job. Like, you can't let that go because that's what's paying the bills at the moment. So you do have to have a good balance, and I do try and enjoy myself as well. And through my business training as well, it is quite important. One thing is really to be around the people that lift you and support you. If you feel, I've had to walk away from some people that aren't supportive, and I've known them for a long time. You just, if you're not in that right circle, then just walk away, because it's not helping me mentally, and I was stressed all the time. So in the end, I've just decided I don't need to mix with them. You know, I'm going to go with the people that are supporting my journey. Some people think you're mad. Why have you got such a good job, and why do you want to do your own thing? And they don't understand. It's like longer term thinking. I'm thinking about flexibility, earning my own money, like not working for someone else all the hours, as someone said earlier. It's the way I want to go and build my speaking business and my coaching business, and hopefully things will work out. If they don't, I'll just pivot and do another business. But I do know that that's my next aim in life. So be really careful of who you surround yourself with. It's always positive, uplifting people that are supportive, your immediate family members and things like that. So just check in on yourself as well, and have that space and time for your own recharging and thinking time of what you're doing next and where you want to go. That's really important as well. Do something you enjoy. You know, I like to go to the gym. It just, you know, you just feel good afterwards. It de-stresses you for a little while, do a bit of boxing, you know, whatever, horrible day or whatever. Just find something you enjoy and make sure you do make time for them.
Perfect, thank you. Any final comments before we wrap up? Okay, I'm going to ask you one final question, because I'm also going to record this. What is your one piece of career advice to your younger self? One of those standard bait questions.
Mine would be getting the support in place early on. Get that mentor, get a coach, and also have a sponsor when you're out in your career. Look for that sponsor to open doors for you, because when you're not in the room, you want people to talk about you positively in the leadership team, and make sure you're making the grass green for yourself.
I think my advice to my younger self would be, don't be afraid to ask questions and speak up more about the achievements and things that I've done.
Mine would be, empty mouths don't get fed. Like, if you want an opportunity, you better speak up and then grab it.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending. Thank you to all my lovely people online that are watching. The only reason I did that was honestly so